All right, so welcome to the first Cloudy County Extension Community Call. So this is something that Joe and I are super excited about, and have been trying to plan and figure out a way to do for a long time. And so first, I think we're going to start with some introductions of ourselves, just to kind of let you know who we are and why we would even do something like this, and what we do now. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the community itself and how we kind of envision it working and the direction that we imagine it's kind of headed in. And then we're going to talk about our feature highlight in this case, which is just a general broad overview of what is Office 365 in the first place, because that can be kind of a cloudy topic, right, Joe? So there would be lots of cloud puns, so that is to be expected. If you have any questions while we're talking, feel free to drop them in the chat. Once the, I guess, hour call is over, we'll turn off the recording. And if you have any questions that you want to ask off mic or on camera or whatever, just know that there will be an unrecorded part of this presentation at the end that you can just kind of a free for all, a little unstructured conversation just for anything that you might have on your mind that you want to talk about. So let's start with the famous, infamous, however you want to look at it, Mr. Joe Gasper. And you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm a systems administrator here at the University of Florida on a team that is centrally responsible for a bunch of our infrastructure that relates to the College of Agriculture here and the extension program here at the university. I joined this team about 5 years ago. Dwayne's been on it a couple of years before that, I believe. And a little bit before that, I was for about 5 years on a central team for the campus that ran our Office 365 environment, our cloud environment, among other things. So that's where I kind of got my first taste in the 365 world. Running that centrally for a while, the back end, I decided I wanted to join a little bit closer and be able to interact with people a little bit more, and joined the IFAS team, and been enjoying that for a number of years now. I see we've got someone on from Purdue. Before that, a number of years before that, I graduated from Purdue, so nice to see a Boilermaker on here.
Nice.
That's a brief history here.
Okay. Well, Joe and I are just about the same person at this point. We spend a lot of our time together. We're on the same team, as Joe mentioned. We both work for IFAS, the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences here at UF. And we do a lot of work with extension. And to be honest, we didn't know a lot about extension 5 years ago. And the more that we have worked with our agents and educators, the more that we have visited our extension offices. We have been to all of them. We have 67 counties in Florida, and we've been to every district, every office, and got to chat and work with our agents and really start to understand what is it that they need, what to do, their goals, how do they deliver their programming. And so it's been really kind of a lot of fun. I really enjoy extension. I kind of am a little jealous, actually. I wish there was like an IT extension type thing, which is kind of, again, what led to this.
We did have to spend about 5,500 miles driving the state once with you. So, but the rest has been fun.
We spent a lot of time in a car together. Yes. Too much time. So we know a lot of you from events that we've done, like the National Association of County Agricultural Agents, Extension Florida, Extension Professionals of Florida, those types of events that we've kind of helped with. And so Joe and I have been running an internal training community internal to UF that some other extension programs have kind of joined. And but that's primarily targeted at UF. It's primarily targeted at what's going on inside the University of Florida. How does it affect IFAS specifically? And so we wanted to do something that was a little bit more broad, a little bit, the audience would be extension in general. And so that's kind of what created Cloudy County. So if you're a member of that other team, don't worry, it's not going anywhere. Cloudy County is completely separate, and we'll augment it and continue to work kind of alongside it. So we're going to talk a little bit about the team itself. So there's two parts to the way that this community is going to work. There's a monthly call that you're on now. Thanks for coming. And there's going to be the team itself. What this gives you is it gives you constant ability to communicate with other members of the community. So if you have a question, you can log into Teams, post your question in Teams, and we call this asynchronous education, asynchronous communication. Somebody could answer it tomorrow, or they could answer it in a few minutes, versus having to answer your question live on a call only on the second Wednesday of the month. So we wanted to provide that additional community aspect. So let me share my screen here real quick. So inside of Teams, you'll be a member of Cloudy County Extension, and first thing you'll see is the general channel. Just if you're not familiar with Teams, don't worry. We're going to be talking about all the different pieces and parts of Office, including Teams. So you'll see our welcome message, which kind of is what I'm about to tell you, how we anticipate this team working. As you move down the left-hand side, you'll see these are called channels. If you don't see these channels, you might see them like hidden. So like if I hide this one, you might see it here. There's show hidden channels. Sometimes Teams glitches out and that doesn't work perfectly all the time. To show it in your list, just click where it says one hidden channel and then click the show button next to it, and that will expand it and add it to your list. The first one is announcements. Nothing really there yet, but that's going to be where, let's say Microsoft announces this big, incredible new feature for PowerPoint. We'll post it here. This is where we're going to post industry type announcements or announcements as they relate to Cloudy County specifically. So these are not announcements for like what we're going to be doing. These are just industry type announcements. This is Joe and I going out and reading blogs and stuff and then distilling that information down and then sending it out to all of you. Cloudy Chat is where kind of the action is going to happen. So you'll be able to see that you'll have a new conversation button will be lit in the Cloudy Chat. This is where you can post questions. And one thing that we really want to see with this is I don't want it to just be questions. Questions are totally fine. I want you to tell us about the latest vacation you went on. I want you to tell us about an achievement that you had. I want you to tell us about something that went well in your programming or something that didn't go well that you wish you could have done better, or just basically ideas about how you're operating and working and things that are going on for you so that we can start to learn from each other. Maybe you prefer Qualtrics and another person prefers Microsoft Forms, and it starts a conversation about, well, I can do this or I can do that. And we're not here to sell you anything or sell you a particular product. The conversation will be Microsoft focused because that's our professional focus. But we do want to see what you're doing and how you're doing it, and kind of get some ideas from each other and learn off of one another. And then down we have what's called community calls. So these community calls are just the announcement of the call. And then just for convenience, if you're looking at the team, there will be a link in the community call post where you could jump into this call. After the meeting is concluded, I will change that link to a recording of this call. So we're also going to add all the recordings into this channel as well, so that you'll have the ability to go back and watch them in case you missed something, or if you want to review something, that will be here as well. You'll be able to find the recordings up top. We'll be creating tabs along the top here that will highlight that information. We're not 100% decided on how we're going to deliver that. It might be a private YouTube channel. It might be directly inside of Teams. We're not 100% sure because this is a little bit different as far as how we run this community. But Joe, you got anything to add to community stuff?
I think you touch a little bit on getting some conversations going from those on the call here, and I really want to learn from everyone. I think you'll cover this in a little bit here. Just our travels, our working with our agents, and learning about their needs around extension programs and how we can help solve those. Sometimes we've had a number of really interesting and fun people we've worked with and help them develop, changing their business processes, changing the way they run some of their camps or things that they manage their volunteers. There's just different ways that they've struggled with things, and we've been very active in communicating with them and asking them, how can we help? So discovering other ways you all have solved some issues, and the ways that we have, I think will be a great way to share, and looking forward to learning from everyone.
Definitely. So just to make sure everybody is awake, we're going to try a little test. I'm going to pop up a poll on your screen, and if you could just fill in where you're joining us from. You'll see the poll in the chat. If it didn't pop up on your primary screen, it should pop up like right in your face. But if it didn't, you'll see it in the chat as well, and you can submit your answer. I have a feeling I know how this is going to look. That's New York. Love that. Got some Kansas and Indiana, West Virginia, Montana. I heard it was really cold up there. Somebody said a few weeks ago it was -5. I don't even know what I would do with that. Like being somewhere that the air actually hurts you doesn't seem fun.
It's
All
pretty
right.
toasty down here today.
Yeah,
A
it's in
little
like the mid 80s, I think, today. It's a little warm, but we're gonna get a Florida cold snap, and it's supposed to be like in the 30s this weekend. So cool. So that's a pretty good little spectrum there of states. So that's awesome. All right, so we're gonna get started on the feature highlight. So usually the way these meetings would work, if this were a regular call, as we get moving and our community matures, the first 15 minutes or so would be what's new. Well, the community itself is what's new, so that's why we spent the first 15 minutes or so talking about that. But now we're going to jump into our feature highlight, which is Office 365, and what the heck is that, and why should I even care? So Joe, you want to give us a quick rundown of what is Office 365? If you were to summarize it in one concise sentence, what would you call Office 365?
One, that's hard to do. So I would call it a collaboration platform. I think if I can do that in 2 words. I think we'll find is that it's really about a place for you to work securely, safely on data and documents, storing of those documents, and really, I think one of the key features is the ability to work with other people. I mean, I'm sure we do that every day. We're working on teams or in labs, or sometimes out in the field with people, out presenting information in front of maybe Master Gardener volunteers, things like that. But it's a way to collaborate on those documents and easily do it through, well, it's the cloud. The cloud is Office 365. I'm sure we'll take you through ways to use it, not just in the cloud. It's something that you're going to be using on your desktop or your Mac, but definitely a
That's a
way
heck of
to yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's a heck of a run-on sentence, Joe.
Yeah, well, should have stopped at 2 words.
I don't blame you.
Collaboration platform.
Yeah. So you said the cloud, and I want to summarize that too. So digitally or in your own house or whatever, like raise your hand in your room if you've ever used Hotmail or AOL email or Yahoo Mail or any of those services. So those were all cloud hosted email. So the cloud is this really to me, frustrating word that some marketing person came up with, and it just took off and changed the direction of how we talk about online services. So, what the cloud is it just means it's a service provided by another company that they host everything. They run the servers and they have the connection. They have a data center somewhere that has a bunch of systems in it, and they host your email for you. The files that you're using live on their systems. That's what the cloud is. The cloud is not new. The cloud has been around since the internet was born. Anything that you ever used that wasn't run by you was in the quote unquote cloud. So even old school AOL email, that was cloud hosted email because they were hosting their mail for you. So I feel like it's just important to identify that and talk about that real quick because sometimes people get a little freaked out about putting their stuff in the cloud. I just wanted you all to know that you've been doing it for a very long time. It's always been that way. Uh, the cloud that we're going to talk about is the Microsoft cloud. They operate data centers all over the world. Very, very big time network, you know, bigger than our universities can do. And they've got them strategically placed, you know, in Virginia, in California, in Texas, you know, they're all over the United States. And so when you put your stuff in that cloud, it's going into Microsoft systems. So Office 365 is an online subscription service that all of our universities probably already have in place. It may or may not be active. You may not see the same thing that we're showing you. We can't really speak to the specifics of how your university is configured, but what we're going to show you is an extremely vanilla setup of Office 365 with all the buttons turned on. And so if you don't see something the exact same way, it could be a specific thing for your university, and we can help as much as we can identify that. But of course, we won't be able to change that. Um, so when we start off with Office 365, the thing that we tell our users is the best place to go to get started is office.com. So if you've got a second screen or you feel like flipping back and forth between windows, you can follow along with us on your computer. So you'll head over to office.com, which is what I've got on my screen here. And when you get there, you might be prompted to log into it. You would log into it however your university works. Typically, your login ID or your email or whatever it is that your university uses to gain access to this. And this is the landing page. This is like the web home of Office. You can get to all the stuff that you're using in Office 365 can be accessible here. And you can see the first thing it's showing me is it's showing me stuff that I was recently working on. It's also going to show me stuff that was worked on by my peers that I am collaborating with. In this case, it's just me and Joe. So there's not really a lot of activity because it's just stuff that Joe and I are working on together. So you'll have some recommended content right there in the middle. These are going to be files that are stored in the cloud somewhere. They might be in Teams, they might be in OneDrive, they might be in a SharePoint site, but they have to be cloud hosted files. And again, down at the bottom, you're going to see recent activity as well. Before we move too far down, people skip over this. I'm guilty of it. I just did it. The search box here is incredibly powerful. This search box is like Google for your institution. Anything that's hosted in the entire Office 365 ecosystem that you have access to see can be returned in this search result. So I'm going to give a demo here. So Joe and I were playing with this word earlier. So I typed in the word chaotic, and just because it's a word we saw that was going to come up in a few different places. So the first thing I get is I get a file. So this is a PDF file that's a transcript of a podcast that Joe and I did. But that transcript says the word chaotic in it somewhere. And so that was returned as a hit. That was a result for me. As I move across the top here, these are called search verticals. I can change and scope my search to say, only show me files or show me SharePoint sites that might have chaotic in the name of them, which in this case is none. Show me people. You know, I'm looking for a specific person. You can use this as a directory to locate and find information, email addresses, phone numbers, whatever your directory has inside of it. You can do that here. News, I don't think this is gonna happen a whole lot, but SharePoint news articles that are posted will come in through here. And then this is a big one, conversations. So this is pretty new. You may not see this in your environment yet. I believe this is currently rolling out. Joe and I were testing it just a couple weeks ago, but this is gonna show you every chat or email, conversation, channel message in Teams is gonna come back here. So now if you are trying to find an email or find a chat in Teams, you'll be able to put that in here and use the search box. This is a very, very powerful function. Lots of data is at your fingertips here, just in this one little search box at office.com. Joe, you want to expand on that?
Yeah, one thing we like to say is you don't need to know where something is. You just need to know what it is to find it. So you will find if you're working on a Word file or an Excel file on your desktop, the last files that you've been working on will surface up into this office.com site for you. So it is kind of one place to go to discover what it is you've been working on and not really have to remember where did I save it. If you're used to using a traditional file server and you place documents out on that file server, sometimes you've got to drill through, and if maybe maybe it's something you haven't worked on in a while, try to have to go back and figure out where was that file I was working on. In this case, if you know a word that's even in the text of the document, not just the title, you should be able to find it again.
Even imagery. So I expanded my search to something that's a little bit more useful here. And so there's an image tab where SharePoint has crawled the text that's in the image and made it become searchable. So when you scroll down here, you're going to see, welcome to Cloudy County, a Shift Show community. Well, that's a picture. But the hashtag Shift Show search term, it returned it because SharePoint actually recognized the text characters inside of that image. So Joe nailed it when he said you don't have to know where it is. You just have to know what it is. And search is probably, in my opinion, one of the most powerful features in all of Office 365. Sticking around the top here, you may or may not see this little button that says Install Office. So if I click the drop down next to that, you're going to see this is how you would install the Office Desktop Suite if your university has given you a license that includes that. In our environment, we get 5 licenses per person or 5 installations per person. So when you go home, we advise our agents, hey, if you need Office on your home computer and, everybody went remote a couple of years ago, all of a sudden we're trying to collaborate from everywhere. We told everybody, use this button, go home, install Office on your home computer, sign into it with your university credentials. You can get access to your stuff and work on your stuff. And you can get that on up to 5 different devices at one time. If you want to check and see, I mean, obviously, if you see this button, then you have the license. I think that's probably pretty straightforward way to know. If you don't see this button, then you don't have a license. Your university doesn't have a license that includes that that privilege. All right, up on the left. So we have this little thing here. We like to call this the waffle. This is kind of like the start menu on your computer. It says app launcher also. I've heard people call it app launcher, but waffle sounds more fun because we like foodie terms. So when you click the app launcher or the waffle, you're going to get a little flyout menu that's going to start to show you some of the things that are inside of Office 365 as far as apps go. I am going to expand this out. Of course, my dog would pick the best time to start barking like crazy. All right. So here are all of the apps that are a part of the Office 365 suite. And Joe and I think we're just going to take turns going back and forth, talking about each one of these really briefly. And then as we have more meetings in the future, we're going to dive into some of these in more detail because some of these are so cool that they warrant their own conversation entirely. So I'm going to start just right here with bookings. Bookings up at the top. This is a this is one of my favorites. This is a way for you to publish a scheduling portal that your customers can use to book an appointment with you. This is a thing that's built kind of like for small business. So if you imagine you're a barber shop, right? You can publish on your website a link that people could click on that would take you to a bookings portal. Let me show you my my work one real quick. Maybe. There we go. So this is my bookings portal. I make this publicly available. This is actually in my email signature of anytime I email somebody. You can go on here and you can select various services. So a 30-minute meeting. You can select a time slot. Now, this time slot is synchronized to my Outlook calendar. So you can only pick a time slot that I'm not already doing something. So if you're really diligent with the use of your calendar, you have meetings scheduled already, those meetings won't even show up. So I'm on vacation the 14th through the 18th. You can see that whole week is grayed out because I have it blocked off on my calendar. You can use this for like office hours. If you offer a specific kind of consultation, a nutrition consultation, or some other type of assessment, you can offer that during, on Tuesdays and Thursdays between the hours of 2 and 4. And that's all people would see the ability to book would be that very specific window that you had created. This is a great tool that allows you to make yourself more accessible without, giving away complete access to your life and your schedule. You really get to control it, but at the same time, people have a way to contact you and communicate with you. It does do either in person, you can have it if you have a meeting place that you offer this particular service, like a plant clinic or something like that. You could make that the address where you meet, or you can opt to make it an online meeting. So if you're doing online, not medicine, but online meetings, you could do that as well.
You can have multiple people pick the same time slot too, right? If you wanted. So perhaps there's 2 days a month that you do a plant clinic. You can offer those 2 slots up as a service, and perhaps you have room for 30 people. So you can set a limit on those for up to 30 people. And as those fill up, they'll automatically come off the calendar.
Joe, you want to take the next one? And also, I definitely want people use the chat box if you have any questions or if you have any reactions to any of these things as we're moving on. Joe, you want to skip a few there?
Yeah, let's go. I think in looking at that first row, I'd say we jump straight down to forms. I think is what we'd look at the next one probably.
Yeah, let me explain that real quick. So the calendar is basically just a part of your that's your Outlook calendar. Class Notebook is a part of OneNote, which we'll talk about here in a second. Delve, nobody uses it. Ignore it. Don't act like it doesn't exist. Excel is just the online version of Excel. So we probably aren't going to spend a lot of time talking about Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. Most people are familiar with those, but we will show you a few tricks in those. If you move on down to Forms, Joe, take it away.
Yeah, so Microsoft Forms is a online forms processing system, and often we're probably familiar with the word Qualtrics. So Microsoft Forms is Microsoft's equivalent to Qualtrics. Right off the bat, I'll just say there are not as many advanced features in Microsoft Forms. We have found it to continue to grow and take on capabilities that most people need, though. It's probably that 80-20 rule. It does branching, if you understand that. It can do sections where you can put a number of form or number of questions on a specific form page and jump around like that. We like Microsoft Forms for one of the key reasons is it's very easy, and built into it is to collect information internally to the people at your university through authentication. So it's very easy to collect data from other people at your university without having to ask them for their name and their email address and information like that. But you can also use Microsoft Forms to collect data, collect information in a form with people outside of your university with an anonymous poll, anonymous survey without any authentication also. I would say it's people have told us that it's, and we feel that I've used Qualtrics also. It's simpler to use. It's quicker, I think, to build a form and produce a form. You've got all of your standard, choices. You can ask for specific if you want dates or integers, numbers, things like that. What's also great about it that we find helpful over Qualtrics is the ability to easily get an Excel file. As you can see there in that picture right now, there's an open in Excel. It's right there, very easy to get access to. I'm sure we'll cover forms in one of our sessions. But another great thing about it is there's a way for that form to actually live in a place where other people than just the form author has access to. And I think that's probably something that's also very key and easy to do over Qualtrics that we've found. So if you have a form, one person might produce it, but maybe you've got a number of people who need access to the data and access it live while it's coming in. With Microsoft Forms, you can actually have that Excel file behind the scenes saved into Microsoft Teams, a location that multiple people can have access to. That's kind of the big reasons why we like forms and reasons we've been told people like to use forms. And hopefully while you're watching there, Dwayne, just kind of quickly walk through a quick form.
Yeah, forms, Joe again nailed it. The times that we start to recommend forms is because of the ease of collaboration, likely in something that our agents are already using. We've done a lot for years. We have been doing a lot of promotion of Teams, and you'll start to see as we go through all of these apps that while there's all these various apps inside of Office 365, Teams is kind of the hub that brings them all together and puts their power all in one centralized place. And again, yes, being able to put that output file, that Excel file, can actually live inside of a team and be live updated. As people are filling out your form, you're going to see entries, flowing into that spreadsheet live as it's happening. There is no need for you to go out and do a weekly download and reconciliation of the results from some sort of survey that you might have out there. Let's see here. Moving on down, we're going to go back to explore all my apps. Kaizala, we're going to skip. Kaizala, likely just kind of ignore it. It's kind of like a little chat application. It came from a consumer service that's built just for people to use, kind of like WhatsApp or GroupMe or something like that, that they can create a little chat group and talk to each other. That's really all that is. We don't find a whole lot of value in it, honestly, because it's a duplication of Teams. Teams has group chat and all that built into it, and it's something that you already have. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have yet another one of those things. Moving on over into lists. Lists is really, really cool. Lists is the way that we described this when we initially showed this off to our user base was we said, think of a list like a spreadsheet on steroids. An Excel spreadsheet, you've got columns, you've got rows, but in this, you can customize it. You can do calculations just like you could in regular Excel. You can make it consistent. The key to this is the fact that you can make it very, very consistent as far as tracking stuff. So I don't know what's in this list. Joe, you made this. Okay, I can't even get to it. Try that again. We'll do a little default one here that I created. So this looks pretty plain because I haven't put any data in it yet. But if I wanted to add a new item, so here's the columns. I'm tracking issues, right? These could be tracking customer issues. These could be tracking problems inside of your office or tracking sign in and sign out. Or in the case of extension, a big one, tracking contact that you made with a particular person. You could create columns here, which would kind of be like fields for all the different data points that you're trying to collect. So when I go up here to say new issue, you'll see that I have what's kind of like a form, right? In fact, it is called a form. This is a list form where I have to fill in all of those values and put them in here. Now, maybe you don't need to be the one that fills it out. Maybe you want to share this with somebody so I can copy this link to this and I can distribute this to other people within my organization and have them fill it out and they'll populate the list for me. Maybe you're soliciting them for information that you're trying to collect to build a report or a dashboard of some kind. You can do that right here from copy link. You have total control over these columns, how they look, how they act. The formatting of them, are they like a little drop down list? Is it an open answer? Is it a file attachment? You can do all kinds of stuff like that inside of Microsoft Lists. There's lots of templates in here. So let me go back to, let me close out of this. So we'll go into lists. I will click new list. And you'll see all these templates here. Employee onboarding, event itinerary, recruitment tracker. There's all kinds of like points to get you started on how to use Microsoft Lists, and that will give you some inspiration. And when you click on these, you'll actually see like a little demo of what it would look like. So this is a good example of what a list would look like. The ability to put what status this employee's onboarding process is in. How many things do we have to go through before we can check all this off to say, okay, they're good, they're ready to start work. And you can, like I said, the part about lists that blows my mind is versus a spreadsheet is, let's say you've got this big spreadsheet. You need to make sure that that spreadsheet has a consistent look, right? You need to make sure that somebody, if they're adding data to that spreadsheet, adds it in a way that maintains the integrity of that spreadsheet. Imagine you've got a spreadsheet and you want to share a specific row of that spreadsheet with an individual. I need to give them access to just this row. You can't do that in Excel, but you can do that in Microsoft Lists because each of these rows is called an item. So let me go back into my list here. You'll see it says, I'm going to create new, and it's going to create a new item. So once I enter this and it comes, it becomes a part of my list, I could share that item with Joe, and Joe could only see that specific item and have no awareness of the rest of the data that's inside of my list.
Dwayne, in that form interface there, real quick, I think there's a key theme that you're talking about is for the priority. It's a drop down. That's kind of where we're talking about integrity. In Excel, it's very easy to create a field called priority. And when people are entering data for you, hope that they enter the word high. Maybe they enter the word top or VIP. But if you don't give them a list and a very specific set of priority items that you want them to use, your data can get kind of all wiggy and not easy to search or filter properly. So this type of list enables you to actually specify those fields, or choice fields. Like you can only pick from this list of items for this column. So it helps you make sure that you're entering correct data that you can then use later in what we call views. Like eventually, if you wanted to show all high priority items on this list, you can filter that way also, just like you can in Excel, but you can save that view. You can always come back to it.
I'm struggling with this. It is not liking me. Sorry, Joe. This is, like I said, this was one of the default templates. I didn't really change anything about it. I just, I don't know what it's complaining about. Try and make it all one word. Oh, okay. Moving on. We're going to skip that. So yes, the integrity of your data. There's also some extra add-ons that you can do with lists. Let me go back into that real quick, where you can do some automation. So up here, you're going to see a little automate, and you can create some rules where you can say when a column changes, when a values change, when a new item is added, send me an email. Or send the person whose email address was entered in that field, send them an email. So like if I'm using it to track issues and I put Joe in as the requester of the issue, and then I set the status of that issue to closed, I'm going to take whatever the resolution was that I put in, and I'm going to put it in an email and send it to them automatically. So you can make it again, like an issue tracker. And you can also do some basic visualization. So through another application called Power App, or I'm sorry, Power BI. Power BI is a way to visualize data. You can take a lot of data and you can turn it into charts and graphs and scatter plots and all kinds of stuff to get a visual of the data that's inside of that list. So this list kind of starts to act and become like a little bit of a database. That you can use it to be the behind the scenes source for some sort of larger report.
We've got a couple of questions in there on this real quick. Yes, people are using Microsoft Lists for a CRM. There's a couple of those templates that they're sort of similar. Some of the columns you might use in a customer relationship management program, CRM. But you have the ability to start with a custom list, basically empty list, and add the columns that you want to track that's important for you. I know for our agents, sometimes you might want a column that's maintains the number of times that you've met with someone, things like that. And again, you can start with a custom list and create a column for number of contacts and keep that up to date. I think that's definitely people are using it for that, not a problem. And the second question, can a Microsoft Forms be set up that will add something to a list?
Joe, do
So
you want to go ahead and just cover Power Automate?
Yep, that leads right into that one. We'll jump a couple of those. So in this Office 365 suite, we have a workflow tool, and it's called Power Automate. Sometimes it's called Flow is an initial name. So if you do some Googling, searching on that, that's what you'll find. This tool is, we call it no code programming, or maybe sometimes low code. But it is a visual way to piece together processes and to mimic some business processes. So great question, Karen. We do have already some of our business processes that we use that starts with a Microsoft form. Someone will fill out and complete a Microsoft form, and through that's called a trigger. Something initiates that form. That's our trigger. Somebody completes a survey. That trigger then can be connected to a bunch of other services in the cloud, and not even just Microsoft 365 services. I think there's like 600 connectors, approaching 700 or so. And we can do things with that data. So we used to have a process where we would take a form that was representing someone who wanted to rent out some of our 4-H camps across the state. They want them for a weekend, for a wedding, or something like that. Our camp directors would complete this form of information that they need to provide our business office. Title of the people who are going to rent it, the days, number of people, etc. And now that's in a form, that's in an Excel file. Great. It's that's a start. But instead, we took it a little bit further and we brought that into SharePoint, which is a place to store documents or create these lists. And we brought that in a way that it could be shown as a calendar for the camp directors, and the business office could see that list also, and they would see it kind of as a business view. They would just see rows of data. They could add their own columns that are kind of the business use. So a Microsoft form went into a Microsoft list. We could create views of that list for each camp calendar. And the business office could have a different view that they cared about, the columns that they cared about in that data. So yeah, and again, it doesn't require a programmer. It doesn't. It is something that our agents are able to implement and create these integrations.
We saw a fantastic demonstration of this last week by a school district here in Florida, St. Lucie County School District, where they were using it for their teachers, where if you're diligent about using your Outlook calendar and using the built-in category feature in Outlook, so you can right-click on an appointment and assign a specific category to it, they created a Power Automate flow that would scrape their calendar and pull out all the appointments that they had by category with the start time and the end time, and then help them build a report to let them know how much time were they spending on a particular type of appointment. I immediately thought, oh my gosh, we need to have them come to our call and talk about this, because extension agents spend like 2 months out of the year on reporting. And so this would make that process a lot easier if you were diligent about using Outlook and categories. If you met with a customer, log it in Outlook, how long you met with them, and then later we can extract all that information straight from Outlook. Why should you be putting it in Outlook, then putting it in Forms, and then putting it in some other reporting system? You're tripling your effort. So that's some of the things that Power Automate can do, is it can talk to all of the other services in Office 365, and you know exactly what it says. It can automate some tasks for you. Joe, we got a race here, so we got to move pretty quick. I'll take OneDrive. OneDrive is file storage in the cloud. It's for lack of a better comparison, it's like a Dropbox. It's like a Google Drive. It is Microsoft's version of cloud storage. What it gets you though is a lot of storage. So educational institutions they get a lot more storage than regular enterprise customers get. So there's two different flavors of Office 365. There's the academic version, and then there's like business version. Our universities have the academic version, and that gives us way more space. So you get 5,000 gigs of space inside of OneDrive by default. It can go as high as 25,000 gigs inside of OneDrive. OneDrive is a place you can store your files. You can access those files from anywhere. We always like to joke when we train our people and ask how many of them like connecting to our VPN system. You always have some person raise their hand, and we say, well, you like what happens once you're connected. You know, you like the fact that you can get to your stuff. But is your stuff on a file server, a network share, a mapped drive, whatever you call that? Can you pull your phone out of your pocket and look at the files that are stored on that network server? OneDrive gives you that capability. It puts those files in a centralized location in the cloud that you can now access from multiple different ways, from your phone, from your web browser, from a computer, from your home computer. It lets you get to your stuff. And I'll do OneNote real quick too. OneNote is a digital note-taking tool. Imagine a 3-ring binder, and that 3-ring binder has lots of sections in it. And inside of those sections, you have lots of pages in it. This is a digital version of that. This is an exact digital version of that. Joe and I use OneNote quite a bit. We have a little podcast that we use. We have a section for our podcast. Inside of that podcast, we have pages where we talk about every single thing that we're going to do, upcoming episodes, ideas that we're having. We're putting it all in OneNote. And it's pretty rich as far as like the types of things you can put in there. You can paste images in here, tables, bullet lists, checklists, link out to YouTube videos, and you can put them all inside of this notebook. We use it internally in our IT department for documentation on how stuff works. If you need to understand how to do something in our office, you're probably going to find the answer in our notebook. OneNote, definitely one of my favorites. We use it a lot. We use it a lot, Joe. Moving on down. I think everybody knows what Outlook is, so we probably can skip that one. But Joe, this one right here is a pretty big one.
Yeah, Planner. So if you are someone who needs to keep things in a good detail list of some type of maybe an event you're working on, or some type of project that has a number of steps that you're working on, Planner is perhaps your go-to product in this suite of tools. So it's a plan. You know, you can create what are called plans around certain projects or certain events. You can use it as simply as a to-do list for yourself, but inside of perhaps Microsoft Teams, it's a great way to say, oh, you know, we've got an event coming up that we need to plan. We have a mini conference for our Master Gardener volunteers, and we want to make sure we have a number of items, you know, ready for them. All the things you need to do to plan that out. You can create all those items in a plan in Planner, and actually assign them to people in your team. You can see here you can set due dates. You can assign those. Each item inside of a plan, each one of those tasks can be broken down into like multiple tasks, mini tasks, or a checklist or so. You can set the progress of them, high priority items, and the people who perhaps are managing this project are going to be able to have an overview of where, you know, a status view, which is really great too. The more data you put into these tasks and these plans, the more data you get out of. So using the progress filter, using the priority filter, enables you to have some bar charts and pie graphs. They kind of easily show you how far behind you might be, or maybe you've got someone who's overtasked. You'll be able to see those very easily in the charts and that are built into this system.
Yeah, this the way we describe this is project management light. This is a turnkey system, meaning it's not super customizable, but it does a whole lot of things right out of the box. If you're planning an event, I would try Planner for sure, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and everybody knows what the other is doing. And like Joe said, you can use these charts and stuff to see if somebody's overburdened. Joe's got 5 tasks due and Dwayne's got 1. Maybe we should reevaluate, what's going on. You can create what are called these buckets. So this is a style of project management called Kanban. We got a link I think we can drop after this on a video that does a really good job of explaining that. But Kanban is a style where you can move cards like Post-it notes. Think of these like little Post-it notes. You can move them between these categories or buckets as they progress through a business process, of like onboarding an employee. This is another a great tool for that. You may have heard us talk about that with lists. We see a lot of people kind of put lists versus planner. That's actually a conversation that Joe and I are going to expand on a little bit later this week. Our next podcast is going to be on lists versus planner. They're both very powerful. Planner, though, has always been a big hit with our users. When we teach them how to use Teams and talk to them about Office 365, when we show them Planner, they're like, yeah, I'm in. I'll do whatever. I just give me that. Give me that tool because I need that in my life. I need to be able to organize a particular project or task. And they love Planner. Always a home run. So we talked about Power Automate, Power Apps. I'm going to skip for right now because it's a little bit more advanced, but it's a way to basically build an application to do a task for you, to do some work, like I don't know. I'm going to skip it for right now because that's a pretty deep rabbit hole that I don't think we were going to have time to go down. Power BI, I discussed this a little bit earlier. This is in some cases a premium license. So if you click it, your institution, it may not be there. You may not have the ability to use this. It does in some cases require some of the higher level Microsoft licensing. But Power BI is a way to build a dashboard of data. It's a way to visualize data. You could take a giant spreadsheet that's full of a cajillion data points and you could turn it into a really easy to look at, easy to consume graphical report. Think of this like, pivot tables and Power Query and stuff like that would be used inside of Microsoft Excel. This is the next level of that, the evolution of that. So skipping on down, project is another one that requires a premium license. So clicking this likely won't get you anywhere. We don't see this lit up a whole lot, but this is kind of like the next level of planner. This is a more professional project management tool that if you need more specific tools like Gantt charts, effort estimations, dependencies like Dwayne can't complete his task until Joe completes his task, that type of thing, you're going to find that inside of Project. So if you need even more power than what Planner offers, Project might be something you should ask your IT about if it's accessible to you. Joe, you want to take Stream and Sway?
Yeah, let's do those. So Stream is, you could sort of consider it a corporate YouTube environment. If you've been using Teams for a while, a lot of your videos recordings will have ended up in Stream, but it is accessible videos that are stored here in this, again, corporate kind of YouTube environment. I say corporate because things that you put in here, the videos you put in here are only accessible to your institution. You cannot share them outside of your institution. So we have a number of faculty that record their lessons. They have ended up in Stream. We will record training videos and put them up in Stream. Sway is a kind of a modern way to perhaps take a Word document, take a PowerPoint, and put it on the web. And it has sort of a modern feel to a web page, but you can edit and create the web page as easily as you can perhaps a Word document. So we'll find this useful for people that are putting out information about their events that are coming up. They like to use it because again, it's really fast and easy. It's colorful and sort of interactive. You can scroll left, you can scroll down through pages. Depends on how you want to design those.
Yeah, it's a really streamlined presentation. I've seen some people make, like I'm doing here, like kind of like a little blog post, kind of like a little specific page. I've seen some people make some really interesting resumes using Sway because you can include media types like videos and voiceovers, recordings, and things like that. Sway, we don't see it used a whole lot, but I think there's a lot of potential inside of it. Teams, we are kind of referenced this earlier. Teams is what brings all of these things together into one place. Teams that's a big heavy lift for us as far as teaching everybody about Teams. It is really where a lot of our passion lies. But we did want to show all these other apps so that it makes more sense of why would you even look at Teams in the first place, because it ultimately will make that taking all these apps and putting them together a little bit easier. To do is task management for yourself. Like Planner is task management for a project for a group of people. Microsoft To Do is your own task list. You're going to see things in here like if you use that little flag icon in Outlook, those flagged emails are going to automatically go into To Do. It's going to make it something that you should follow up on. You can create different lists that you can use to track what you're supposed to be doing for the day or overall projects that, these are things that I'm working on. I don't want to forget about it. I don't want it to get lost in an email somewhere inside of my inbox. To Do is going to make that a lot easier. There's mobile apps for this, so you can get To Do on your phone. It does integrate into Planner a little bit. So if somebody assigns you a task inside of Microsoft Planner, it will show up under the assigned to me inside of To Do. So To Do is kind of like a nice one-stop shop for all of the things that you need to be doing if you use these task management tools.
Something you said there, Dwayne, I think is really important to key on this, is probably nearly every one of these items you see in the cloud here in this browser is available on your mobile device. And that's, again, one of the key reasons our agents have taken to using these services is because it is so easy to access when you're out of the office and you're in front of your customers and the citizens in your state. It's easy to get access to that data.
I'm going to knock out the last two real quick, Joe, in like
it.
30 seconds. So Visio is a diagramming tool. If you're building a floor plan of your office, you're diagramming a business process, a flow chart, you can use Visio to do this. Visio used to be a premium license, and Microsoft released a Visio for the web that you can get for free. It should be turned on, and all universities should have this. I believe it was turned on by default, but lots of templates here that you can use. Where you can drag shapes over and connect them and make decisions and, connect these things together and create, like I said, a flow chart. A org chart is another thing that we see being done with Visio that's really popular. You need to create the hierarchy of your office. Directors at the top, we got management, all the, people underneath. You can do that inside of Visio. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, I'm going to skip a few of these and go into Whiteboard. Whiteboard is awesome. Whiteboard is built right into Teams, and Whiteboard allows you to create a infinitely scaling whiteboard space that includes lots of interactive media that you can collaborate on with your peers. So you could have a digital whiteboard running in a meeting, just like you could if you were in real life meeting in an office with a whiteboard on the wall. You could all fire this thing up and start drawing on it. You can insert all kinds of brainstorming templates. So we're going to insert this. Whoops, I don't know what I did there. We're going to insert, let's see, that guy. So I can create this little board here, and I can start brainstorming topics and putting sticky notes underneath it, and everybody can be working on it all at the same time. And like I said, it's built right into Teams. So when you do a share in Teams, you can share a whiteboard and then everybody can jump on it together. And there's some little bit awareness of who's on the whiteboard with you. You'll see things moving around and little icons of people's initials or their profile picture maybe while they're working on it. You can also opt to lock the whiteboard down. If you don't want it to be collaborative, you can turn it off and make it view only. So maybe you're using it from some programming and you want to visually show off a bunch of processes or something like that. You could lock it so that only you could edit the whiteboard as people say give you a topic. You could kind of be a gateway to how that whiteboard gets edited, just to prevent, I don't know, a little accident of some kind. So that's almost all the Office 365 apps in about 30 minutes, which is rough. So we're 1 minute over. We're going to really try to respect everybody's time and keep these calls at an hour, just because we know you're all professionals and you're all busy. But Joe and I are going to hang out on the call for an extra half hour or so. So like I said earlier, I'll turn the recording off.
Dwayne, before you do that, I think it's important to keep in this call real quick recording is take him to my account. I think I've seen some questions about, do I have access to Planner or Visio or bookings and some things like that. So I'm going to drop a link to this path that Dwayne's going to. It's called My Account. It's a way for you to discover what subscription you have been given at your university. You'll find it under your profile picture in Office. You click your profile picture in the upper right, you'll find My Account. And if you go into subscriptions in this service, you're going to see what has been enabled and turned on for you.
Yeah,
in fact, most are going to have an A3 academic level 3 license. Is pretty common. It may be A3 license for some. The biggest difference between those two is whether or not you have the full version of Office products on your desktop. If you're licensed for those or not, is what you get with an A3.
Yep, good point. Sorry, we did mean to cover that earlier, and I skipped over that. But Joe dropped that link in the chat. Go to subscriptions. You'll see what has been enabled for you. So Mr. Burdine had said he was not seeing bookings. So this would confirm here, if bookings not listed, that means that they have not enabled that service, and maybe that's a question or a conversation you can start with them on that. All right, I am going to go ahead and turn off the recording. I'm not hanging up. Like I said, we'll hang out for an extra 30 minutes or so. If you have any questions, you want to come off mute, ask your question, type it in the chat, keep that conversation going. We would love to hang out with you. So thank you, everybody. I was super excited about this. This is the first Cloudy County meeting. I'm glad to see all these people here.
Great to see a couple on here that we know. It's great. All right, not while we're rushing around running a online conference.